Well, grade 12s, I want to look at the concept now that's called average gradient. Okay, this is so important, the concept of average gradient. So this lesson will be devoted to a new concept called average gradient. Now, what is average gradient? Well, simply put, if you have any graph that you like, say you have a parabola, let's call it f. If you want the average gradient of this graph, this curve f, between any 2 points on the curve, all you have to do is work out the gradients of AB, the gradients of that line AB, and you will get the average gradient of the curve between those 2 points. So let's explore a little example quickly. If I said to you, let's draw the graph of fx is equal to x squared minus 4. Okay, well, how do we draw that? We know it's y equals x squared minus 4. Now, if you remember from earlier years, what you could have done is taken the graph of x squared and dropped it by 4, which would have given you that graph there. And it's got x-intercepts, it's got a y-intercept and a turning point, and we want to be able to draw this. So let's see. If we want to draw this graph, let's just get the x-intercept quickly. We're going to let y be 0. Okay, and if you remember, we could bring the negative 4 across. 4 is equal to x squared, and plus minus the square root of 4 is equal to x, which is plus minus 2. The y-intercept, well, that's easy. That's just the number on the end there where x goes 0. So if we draw this graph quickly, if I go here, we've got negative 2, we've got 2, and negative 4 is over there. So this graph will go like this. I'm just going to put a little dot there and negative 1 there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is this parabola comes down, it decreases, cuts the x-axis, there we go, cuts the y-axis, turns, comes up, and moves upwards. That's the graph of our parabola there. Okay, negative 2 here, 2, and negative 4 there. Okay, now, what we want to do, and I want to show you something very interesting, I want to be able to determine for this parabola, let's bring it here, I want to look at the average gradients between two specific x values that I want to choose, make up. It could be given to you in a test, but we choose two specific x values, and I've chosen minus 1 and 3, and I want to get the average gradients of the parabola between these 2 points. Now, if you go to, this was negative 2 here, so I'm not too worried about that. Let's go to negative 1. So at negative 1 there, what I want to do is I want to work out the corresponding y value. So my x is negative 1. Now what would my corresponding y value be? Well, let's have a look at this. If you take the graph of fx is equal to x squared minus 4, which is the parabola, what is the f of negative 1? Well, that's negative 1 squared minus 4, which is 1 minus 4, which is negative 3. So your y value corresponding to that x value there is going to be at negative 3. Remember, this is negative 4. That's the y-intercept of the parabola. So we've got a point A here, and that's negative 1, negative 3, and that's a point on the parabola. Now, if you look at the other x value, x is equal to 3, what would be the corresponding y value there? Okay, what would the corresponding y value? I'm going to call this point B. The x is 3, and we want to get the corresponding y value. Remember, the x there is 2. Okay, so we want the corresponding y value. So let's have a look at the f of 3. What would that be? 3 squared minus 4, which is 9, minus 4, which is 5. So the y value corresponding there is, of course, 5. Now, listen to me very carefully. If you want the average gradients of the parabola between these 2 points, all you have to do is work out the gradients of that line segment AB. The gradients of the pink line is the average gradient of the parabola. So how do we do it? We've got the point A, so let's write that down. we've got A as the point -1, -3, and B as the point 3, 5. Now, how do we get the gradient of AB? Well, we subtract the y's, so it's 5 minus -3 divided by 3 minus -1. So I said 5 minus -3 divided by 3 minus -1. So that's 8 over 4, which is 2. Now this is also not only the gradient of AB, but the average gradient of the parabola between those two x values, between x is equal to -1 and x is 3. So it's the average gradient between the 2 points on the curve. Now you could have chosen these points at in any different way, but we've chosen x as -1 and we chose x as 3, and we're working out the average gradient of the parabola between those 2 points, which happens to be the gradient of the line itself joining those 2 points there. Okay, so that's really what average gradient is. It's the gradient of the line joining the 2 points there. Okay, let's have a look at another example quickly. What if I gave you this? Now watch this. I said to you, consider this function f(x) is equal to x squared plus x. Now you know grade 12, that's another kind of parabola there. But we want the average gradient. Now let's have a look here. Between x is equal to 1 and x is equal to 3. Now what do? These are the x's, we need the y's. So let's look at the f of 1. No problem, that's 1 squared plus 1, which of course is 2. So let's call this point A, and we've got x is 1, y is 2. And then of course the f of 3 here would be 3 squared plus 3, which is 9, plus 3, which is 12. So the other point, let's call it B, would be 3 and 12. So what would be the average gradient of f between these 2 points? No problem. You get the gradient of this line joining, which is 12 minus 2 divided by 3 minus 1. So what's that? That's 10 over 2, which of course is 5. Okay. Now sometimes they might ask for the average gradients over an interval. So they'll say to you, over this interval, they'll say to you from -3 to -2. Work out the average gradient. Now, whatever the parabola is doing, it looks something like that. You've got two x values, -3 and -2, and you want to work out the gradients or the average gradient joining those 2 points. Okay, so we take the end point, the first one, x is -3, and we work out the f of -3. What is that? That's going to be -3 squared plus -3, which is 9, minus 3, which is 6. Okay, and what is the f of -2? If we take that value there, it's -2 squared plus -2, which is 4 minus 2, which is 2. Okay, so what we've got now is we've got the 2 points. We've got x is -3 and 6, and the other one is -2 and 2 from here. -3, 6, -2, 2, and then the gradient of that line. Okay, the gradient of this line would be 2 minus 6, 2 minus 6 over -2 minus -3. So what's that? -4 divided by -2 plus 3 is 1, so that answer is -4. That's the average gradient. The average gradient of this graph, x squared plus x, between those two values over this interval, over -3 and -2. Okay.